today. Growing in His word each and every way. Here, morning rays of grace.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Morning Rays of Grace. As you can see, we have a special guest today. This is Dr. Merci Best. That's right. She is a doctor. She is a scientist. She is an entrepreneur. She is a daughter. She is a sister. She is a woman of God, and definitely she is my friend. Welcome to Morning Rays of Grace, Dr. Merci Best.
Thank you. Hey, y'all.
Yes. So today we are going to be talking about her life as a doctoral student and God's grace over her journey during that time. And she, like I said, she is a doctor now. So she graduated this year.
Mm-hmm.
What was the date?
Ooh, April, was it 21st?
April 21st of 2023.
2023.
So that is the date that she graduated. But I had the privilege of meeting her back in 2021 and got to witness this incredible journey and the things that God was doing in her life during this journey. So she's going to share just a little bit of that. And let's start. So tell us your background and like, why did you want to become a doctor? Mm-hmm. And what are you a doctor of?
Okay, cool. So I actually was groomed growing up to be the lawyer of the family. My maternal grandmother, Dorothy Joyce Sutton, she always said every family needs a lawyer and a doctor, and that lawyer will be you. And since as early as childhood all the way to 8th grade, I was like in the history classes arguing to be arguing because I'm practicing for law school, you know. I wanted to go to Harvard Law. I'm a huge fan of Legally Blonde. That was my movie. So I had, my life planned out. But in the summer before middle school, I was in the summer for high school, I was in a preparatory program where they would take local middle and high school students to a university in Richmond, and we would get to take the math and science classes for the year above. Mm-hmm. But I was double advanced in math and science, so they ran out of classes for me to take. So they were like, okay, well, you can go with the high school students and work in a research lab over the summer. So I started working in a research lab at the age of...
She's smart. Let's spit that out there.
At the age of 13. So I've been in science environments, and I was just really good at it. I didn't know that science was a career. I never met a scientist before. But from that, I started getting hooked into science. I went to the College of William and Mary, where I got my undergrad degree in neuroscience. And my college advisor, he actually told me, I think it was my junior year, that you could go straight to your PhD. I always thought you go to the master's. Well, you do undergrad, then the master's, then the PhD. But he was like, oh, no, you can go straight to your PhD. And so
after undergrad.
Straight out of undergrad. So we came up with a list of schools that I would apply for. And he was instrumental in just introducing me to like becoming a doctor. Like I didn't know, like I didn't even think I knew that it wasn't a medical doctor. Like you could be a doctor of philosophy. So I have my doctor of philosophy in pharmacology, not to be confused with pharmacy.
Don't get it twisted.
So pharmacologists, we study the science behind how medicine affects the body. We don't actually prescribe or dispense medication at your local pharmacy store.
In other words, she's not a drug dealer.
No. But I do want to make drugs. Medicine, not drugs.
Yeah.
Medicine.
She makes them.
Yeah. And also test their efficacy to see if they can actually help prevent. I love to be on the edge of like prevention of disease rather than, I would love to cure too, but I'd rather prevent it.
Come on. So what is your study on?
Currently? So my current study what I did my
PhD.
Okay. Yeah. So what I did my PhD studying was this protein. It's this thing in the brain called tau. The way I always explain it is if my hand is a brain cell, tau is where my arm is. But early in Alzheimer's disease, which is a brain disorder, the tau where my arm is goes to where my hands and fingers are. And that's one of the earliest signs that a brain cell is vulnerable to die. And so my whole thing is, okay, if we're trying to prevent Alzheimer's and other brain disorders, we have to prevent brain cells from dying. So I did a whole research study to find that this part in the middle where my wrist is called the axon initial segment. I found that it is vulnerable to damage in Alzheimer's disease. I was able to use mouse brain cells as a model for human brain cells. Wow. And I applied this toxic form of tau. And I found that the axon initial segment becomes shorter and dimmer, which it means that its function is likely impaired. And then I was able to get brain tissue from people who passed away, who donated their brains to science. And I was able to find the same thing that I was seeing in the mouse brain cells is happening in the human brain, where the axon initial segment is shorter and dimmer, meaning that it may have been damaged in the process of that brain cell of dying. And so now, as a postdoc, I'm really taking it a step further, and I'm not looking just at Alzheimer's, but I'm looking at other diseases that deal with tau and seeing if the axon initial segment is damaged, and if so, are genetic mutations that maybe some people have making them more susceptible for this brain cell damage. And then, even if I could take it another step further, how can we find medicines that would protect the brain cells from being damaged?
Yeah, that's good. And I was actually at her dissertation defense. That's what it's called, right? Dissertation defense. And it was incredible. Blew me out of the water. And the thing was, she was able to like articulate it in a way that us normal people were able to kind of follow along. It was very fast, like she's talking now, talking very fast. But I was able to
only
keep
had an hour.
But I was able to keep up. She really wrote that thing down. So, like I said, I was able to go on this journey with her. Not even most of it, like the last half, over the last half,
because that was my last 2 years.
So the last 2 years,
so a third,
and really seeing the trials and the tests that she was kind of going through, and also seeing God's hand work during all of it. So, and two, we know that everyone is not going to be a doctor. So I don't want you to go away from this episode, because these are also just things that you can also use for your day-to-day life. She is very relatable. This story is very relatable. So don't get shy or backed away. Like, this a doctor. Right. Like, well, how can I relate to a whole PhD?
I'm a regular girl.
She is regular. Okay. So just what are some of the things that you had to kind of deal with and like travail through in your PhD program?
Well, the first thing was my pride. Because, and then it's like, it's so interesting because I feel like everything needs to be in moderation.
That part.
So there was a healthy level of self-confidence, but I think I was like over that threshold because growing up, there was no limits. Like, my parents always told me I could do whatever I wanted. Like, and then being smart, like you said earlier, the teachers would gas me up so much. They would be like, "Oh, I wish I had a classroom full of Mercy." So, like, you know, the head was growing. The head was growing. And so, and also because I had all this research experience under my belt, starting research at age 13, I'm like,
that's crazy.
We gotta accelerate my timeline. I need to be in and out of grad school. So I had so much pride going into it, and I feel that the enemy was using that, and in a sense, for my detriment, because it was like I couldn't receive from people because I felt like I knew everything already. So that was one of the main lessons that I'm still kind of getting, seeing God's hand and his grace, that he has so much patience with me and developing a level of humility and a posture of humility throughout it. But I will take accountability that trickled into probably a lot of the issues that I had to go through, because it was like a lot of it may have been self-inflicted now that I look back at
hindsight.
Hindsight. Yeah. And then I would say another issue that I navigated was racial dynamics and racial tensions. I don't even think you know this. Like my first week before classes started, the KKK came and invaded the campus. So I would have left. No, I literally was on Twitter, and Lecrae was tweeting that he would help students transfer.
Wow!
Yeah, and I'm like, can you even transfer grad school? I only got into one. So it's like, I didn't know how to navigate being a Black woman and a unambiguously Black woman, because there's differences on this campus where, and the thing is that they try to say was, oh, this is not us, these are outside people. It was a former student who started the rally, like who was the head of it. So you can't tell me the campus, it doesn't have seeds of that. And like my experience, and I feel like my eyes was just open to all the like ways I was being persecuted because of my race. And it affected a lot of my relationships with my classmates, majority white, but then also with the advisor I ended up joining, because I'm saying, it's like, you're an old white man, what do you know about my life, and it just put an unnecessary tension between us. And then it trickled into the dynamics between me and some of my colleagues. So my first altercation in the lab was verbal. I ain't throw no hands, nobody threw no hands. It was verbal altercation with one of my colleagues. And I'm up here thinking she a racist and she out to get me. But it was all like, and I mean, some of it was well-meaning, because there are still racism and microaggressions and things of that sort. But some of the dynamics I just kind of blew out of proportion just because of the hurt that I never even processed of feeling unsafe in this campus, especially because everybody knows this, Merci be in the lab. Like, I used to be in the lab really late at night. And so I was just thinking, like, what if I was walking home from the lab late while the KKK, because they didn't send us any messages, like we wouldn't have been aware. And the KKK on the campus with tiki torches. So it was like this whole me feeling like nobody's protecting me here. I had to protect myself. I am a Black woman. I'm unapologetic about that. But it didn't have to be this source of tension or contention between me and others. And I think that was a long thread, even to my last year, where I got into some other issues with one of the faculty members who, I would say she had a white savior complex. So she kind of basically fed off of my issues, with race, and presented herself as a source of support and help. But really, she had other issues with my advisor that she was just using me as a pawn to kind of, it's all this politics. And stuff. So race, pride. I'm trying to think of a third.
You named one.
What?
Striving.
Oh, striving.
Yes. And I think I kind of came in.
You saw that.
Yeah, I saw the striving and her working through that as well.
So that comes from this. It's toxic in the Black community. This phrasing that, oh, you have to work twice as hard just to get halfway as good. So I internalized that. So I'm like, I'm going to show my worth. I'm going to show my worth. I'm going to be in here. And it's so toxic because it's like, but why though? You get paid the same amount.
Same.
And so I will say a part of it was for community too. Because there was someone in the lab that I connected with early, and they would be in the lab like all these crazy hours. So it's like kind of learned behavior, bad habits. But I can't even blame that because I was doing that in undergrad. So people knew in undergrad, they would send me Snapchats of my car still parked outside the lab. Like they would be like, go home, Merci, go home. One time I slept in the lab. Like it was bad. And
even accounting, like,
and but then it's like, even if I look back at it, a lot of it didn't account for much. So it's like
on a hamster wheel.
Yes.
Like,
and I even said that. I told my advisor one day, we had a really like transparent conversation. I feel like I'm working hard, but I don't see the fruits of it. I know I'm working hard. And it was to a point. Now, mind you, I wasn't really hip to my faith. Like, I was very performative. I was lukewarm in my faith. So I would attend church but Christ had not formed in me, as we learned in Thrive. So I didn't really have that intimacy or relationship with God, to where, honestly, my day to day, I woke up, went to lab. There was no wake up devotion, wake up prayer. And so it really took the pandemic for me to sit down. I was not allowed to go to lab because, in fact, lab was closed for months.
Wow.
I moved back home with the family. And that's when I was really getting plugged into like watching sermons and prayer. 6 a.m. prayer saved my life. So it was like this new thing for me where I'm like hungry for God.
Yeah.
And I was seeking God's face and his hand more than I was seeking the achievement and the fulfillment of being in lab and performing in lab. So for me, it really took that pandemic season of me out of lab, and then it was a test, because when lab reopened, it's what like, are we gonna go back to those? And there was a moment where I fell back into the striving because I was like, oh, I gotta make up that lost time that I was out of lab, and like what lesson was learned. But God was still ministering and so patient with me. And it was just like, I started to see the fruit of what does it look like? What does your day look like when you spend that devotion time in the morning and then go to lab?
That part.
Like, okay, this is new for me, but it became this thing that I desired, and I would also feel convicted if I didn't. If I just hopped out of the bed, because you're now
getting a relationship with God, so He's starting to convict you about y'all time together.
So that's striving, and it still comes up to this day because I'm in a new environment and it's new cultural norms, and I'm also working with a new cell line that does require you to come in every day. So what does that look like? Still prioritizing God. Still like, hey, even though I may have to go in on a Saturday where that's my Sabbath, I'm going to still spend that time with God, bring God with me as I go into the lab, and then immediately rest when I come back and not keep thinking about emails or work and stuff. But I would say pride, racial tension, and striving. Those are the three like themes that kind of fed into my experience.
And I think striving, like you were saying, it happens a lot in the Black community because we so often hear that, especially from older people or people that really had to go through the Civil War times or anything like that. So it's just like, man, we have to work hard. We got to do this. But ultimately, what does the Bible say, though? Does the Bible say that we have to work like that? Especially when you're a child of God, like really going in the pace of God, going in the pace of grace, and really like, okay, how much does God want me to do? Like, and why am I striving? Like, what is this? Like, what is the root of this?
And also, like in undergrad, there was this kind of glorification of striving, because we'd be like, oh, I ain't sleeping 2 days. Oh, I ain't sleeping 4 days.
Team no sleep. Like, me and my cousins had this saying called team no sleep. And as we got older, it's like, no, I'm sleeping.
I'm taking a nap.
Yeah. Like, no. So.
And that was transformative. Actually, I got to shout out my therapist at the time. I need to find a new one. But my therapist that got me through my last 3 years, she came to my dissertation defense.
Come on, therapist. Therapist.
So she had me in a season of our therapy sessions of just unpacking rest, because it was just so foreign to me at the time. And I'm like, I can't do that. I never seen a model of that. And now I'm like in this new environment and I'm modeling it for the people. They're watching. They're watching. And it's like, I'm quick to be like, bye, y'all.
See ya. I ain't staying here all day.
Yeah, I get in and I get out. And I think that's just so mind-blowing for them to see like a model of rest and still being productive at the same time. You don't have to sacrifice productivity. But I think the key point that you made is like, what did God ask you to do?
Yeah, exactly.
Do that.
Because I had a moment even at an accounting firm when I was working there, working all day and all night, technically. And it was one morning I remember that because I was getting up, rushing out the door, go to work, then come back. And literally, I forgot my key because I would go in early, like 6 a.m. before anybody get there. And I forgot my key in the building. So I was like, well, I can't go into 8 o'clock. So I had to sit with God. Like, he was telling me, like, come spend time with me. And I was saying no, but I'm getting ready to walk out the door. I was like, well, I got to sit down anyway. But that slowed me down for future reference. It's like, dang, I'm really putting work before you.
Yeah.
Like, that's not...
It became an idol.
Okay.
For sure.
Yeah. And speaking of idols, like, is that something you're still dealing with as far as your career is going? So I know that we're talking about your doctoral program, but even afterwards, like, are you still modeling that behavior in a sense?
No, and I think it's so many levels to this because you already know I don't really enjoy this.
You know, I was being transparent. Let's be transparent because I wanted to bring it up, but I was like, do I bring it up?
So for me, it's easy to make something an idol that you enjoy.
So with that being said, you have stated that you're not currently enjoying where you are now.
No, not at all.
So is that why it's not
in and
an idol?
That's what I'm saying. Like, I'm enthusiastic to see what my next is going to look like because I'm believing that my next is going to be my lab, me starting my lab. And that striving, I got to watch that carefully in this season because that's all I'm being taught right now of like, oh, you got to grind to get tenure. And then after that, you got to grind to get all these grants and stuff. So I'm like, okay, it's easy for me to work 9 to 5. Really, you know, for me, I'm doing like 8 to 4 or so. It's easy for me to do that because I don't want to be there anyway. So it's like clock in, clock out. But yeah, what happens when I enjoy the environment? Because I'm going to be cultivating. I'm going to be cultivating this environment. Yeah. Will I go back to idolizing it? Time will tell. Yeah. I'm praying no, because for me, it's like God is jealous. So go ahead and idolize the whole lab and torn down. So it's like, I do want to be very careful with that. But yeah, right now, I will say I'm not being tested in that area.
So I want to backtrack a little bit because I remember you having some disappointments in your doctoral program, and especially with time. And I think a lot of people can relate to a delayed timeline, something that, again, we may have idolized a specific time and date. Can you speak about your disappointment about your graduation date?
Yes. And I also was going to bring up another disappointment. And this started at the beginning of my PhD journey. Well, two. I have two. So starting into my PhD, I was in a relationship. And I was like, this is it. This is the one.
This is bae. This is husband.
He done met the family, you know. And so I actually was a bit cold at the beginning of the relationship because I knew I was going to grad school. And in my mind, I was going to Boston. So I was really like, we're going to have to break up. And I was like wanting to break up before I left for grad school. But then it became, all right, we're going to be real transparent.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
I prayed a prayer. Oh, yeah. And look, I'm still lukewarm. So I don't know what this prayer prayer. This prayer was not Holy Spirit led. It was, if this is meant to be, make it clear to me.
Make it clear.
And so when I clearly only got accepted into the I applied for 5 schools. All of them was out of state. Except
The
one.
And that's the one you got accepted
That's the one I got accepted into. So I'm like, clearly this is your will, oh God.
Wow.
So I'm thinking, I'm set. I'm like, I'm going to grad school, but I already have, a relationship. Because I was going to a predominantly white grad school. So I was like, ain't gonna be no man there, So
I don't know who God has for you.
See, I limited it. And so I was very secure going into grad school. And like we broke up like maybe 2 months in. So that was a huge disappointment that started off a whole cycle of disappointment.
Yeah.
Then disappointment of meeting my cohort. Because I'm already in my head, this is another saying that's a little toxic. But my mom will always say, the higher you go, the less of us you'll see, meaning Black people. Which, is that a lie, though? I mean, it hasn't been, but I feel like it is kind of what is it? Not deficit mentality.
Like a lack mentality.
And honestly, I don't see many Black people, but I see some.
Yeah, it's not saying that you're the only person.
Yeah.
But it is not as many.
Yeah. And so for me, going in, meeting my cohort, and it's 6 of us, I'm like, oh, it's lit. Because I was thinking it was going to be 2, maybe. And when I got to know them, I realized that Blackness is a spectrum.
Oh, yeah.
And Explain.
Although
all of us was unambiguously Black, I felt as though I was the only one who identified with the Black experience.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a huge disappointment to be surrounded by other Black people, but still feeling like I was the only one
person. Yeah.
And I was getting bullied in grad school for wanting to participate in class and sitting in the front, and it was a huge disappointment because I'm like, not grad school,
right?
Not all of us intended to be in this program, and nobody want to work. So
that's how some people are, though. You wouldn't be surprised. I
was shocked.
I
was disappointed.
You real nervous right now.
I was real nervous. I was like ready to
but
learn,
I was that person too.
And I was so enthusiastic. I wasn't fearful of the experience. I wasn't intimidated. I didn't have imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
So that was a huge disappointment. And then we're going to the major disappointment was May 22nd, 2022. See how I remember that? And I can't remember my actual defense.
Exactly. I was thinking about that. I was like, girl, you can't, talking about this previous
it was Friday,
day.
April 21st, I believe.
Yeah.
But I remember May 22nd, 2022.
Yeah.
So I follow a church and they have these like crazy faith cards. So in crazy faith, I was believing on May 22nd, 2022, I would defend my dissertation. No, I believed that I would actually graduate that day. Meaning I would have had to defend my dissertation before that.
Okay.
So I'm idolizing this date. We're praying into it. I got you on the bandwagon. We proclaimed it May 22nd, when
time was ticking.
Time was ticking. We were still like
possible. Yeah. And I'm like, no, we still don't pray.
She said, I'm booking my flight. She was supposed to be out of money trying to go on this crazy bandwagon.
This is what I thought. This was what God said.
Yeah, no, this was what Merci said.
Jesus. See, that's why you don't follow people.
Yeah, co-sign.
Like co-sign with people. Yeah.
But I did also feel, I felt like it was the right time. Mm-hmm. So my timeline, because we were past my timeline.
Yeah.
Mind you, I wanted to graduate in 4 years. May 22nd, 2022 would have put me at 5.
Yeah.
So I surely.
But still, and disclaimer, you should have actually graduated at that time because your program,
I had people working against me.
Right.
I had people
so
working against me.
So it was like some demonic situations going on in the background, which kind of caused the delay.
Yeah.
Because she really could have graduated in 2022.
Yeah.
So
if not before then. Because honestly, it was really delayed. The main requirement to graduate was our first author publication. And I had been adamant about getting this publication my second year.
Yeah.
So but that's neither here nor there.
Or it's not,
because we're past that.
It is.
Yeah, and but yeah, it was. So we were praying into it. I'm seeing things happen, but I'm not, y'all. When I tell you, my faith was on 100. Like I wasn't fazed by it. We got up to the weekend of graduation. Oh no, the week before I got my graduation robe.
Yes. Oh, y'all.
I got my graduation robe.
She really did. She really did. We're at this point, we're believing until the day of.
The day of. Because even the day before, we're like, oh. It's gonna happen.
It's still gonna happen.
Yeah, we're like, they're gonna just have favor or grace for you and let you walk. And yeah, I'm up there telling my dad. My dad, like,
we're looking like boo.
Yeah, he's like, oh, should the family come? And he's like, maybe they'll just let you walk. Maybe they'll just let you walk across the stage.
Look, I remember she sent me a video.
I sent her a video of me in the graduation.
Play a music.
I was crying because I had a prayer call that morning because that was a Sunday.
Oh Jesus!
And I'm in tears because the lady is I guess she can sense I was downcast.
I'm sure.
And she was like, I don't know what the situation is, but God got you. God sees you. I'm profusely bawling on the phone at this point. And I told all the people that were on the call, I said, y'all, I was supposed to graduate today.
Yeah.
And I was so sad. But then you was like, go ahead and put your robe on.
I did. I told her to put her robe on. Then she sent me a video. Like we're still declaring this thing. Even if it didn't happen this day, it's finna happen like really soon.
Yeah.
So go ahead and practice this.
Yeah.
That's all you're doing.
It was an exercise of faith because like you just watched the sermon. Yeah. Okay, you bout it. So what happens if it doesn't happen?
Yeah. What if it don't? What you
gonna do? And so I got my little self together and we kept at it. Yeah. And
even in the sadness.
Yeah, even in the
disappointment.
And then also, was it that morning I repented for idolizing the day or soon after?
Yeah.
God gave me that revelation that I idolized May 22nd, 2022.
Yeah.
And and it was still a journey after that.
I was just going to go into that. Yeah. Like, even after that, there were still disappointments and letdowns. And even it looked like it was still going to be prolonged even more. Because one of her advisor asked her to be an assistant, a TA.
Yes,
and it was like, assistant. I am literally about to graduate. I don't have time to be a TA. I'm researching. I'm getting my dissertation together. Like you're at the brink of the end.
You haven't read my paper yet, but you're asking me to serve you. So that was another exercise of humility for me.
And someone else graduating before you.
Oh, let's not. Okay, we're gonna go there.
I mean, we're on the topic of disappointment right now.
That was one of the biggest disappointments because not only someone else graduated before me, someone who I trained and I was giving advice to and editing their qualifying exam. And also commiserating with. So we in the lab talking about he ain't read your paper. He ain't read mine either, girl. But meanwhile, he had to read yours because it got accepted. So
lying.
Yeah. So that was a and oh no, this was when it hit. When he introduced her at her defense and dropped my name in the introduction. She's the first out of 3 of my students who are planning to graduate. And I was like, how? And then that was a humility moment too. Because I'm like, I know my work ethic.
But in that, did you feel betrayal?
Yes.
Yeah.
I felt betrayal because I'm just like, somebody lied. A lot of people lied. And I'm the only, I felt like I was the only one who didn't know what was really going on.
Yeah.
And it was also like, I know I'm working hard. So why not me? Like, why isn't this my defense?
Yeah.
And that whole first, like, that hurt. Cause I'm like, I really felt that it should have been me.
Yeah.
But when my time came, it was very special. Like you say, you got to come out.
Yeah.
I had most of my family from New York.
Yeah, it was so good.
My aunt Charlene, Denasia, Dominique,
your whole family, your best
immediate
friend,
family, my best friend.
Yeah.
So many people from the university.
Yeah, other friends,
mentors, people that I had just met that year. So I gave a talk at an elder home, retirement home. 2 of the residents came out for that. It was a beautiful. I mean, mind you, I ain't do my due diligence in preparation,
but it was still.
I was at a pitch competition the night before,
right?
But it was still like
she still delivered.
Yeah, it was awesome. So God knew. Mm-hmm. He knew the exact date, the time, the mindset that I would be in.
Yeah.
During that moment, and also that looked like it wasn't going to happen because the week before. Now I will take accountability.
You mean the dissertation?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because they had to change the class and stuff like that.
They, my committee forgot that they agreed on the date and time for my defense, and another student, and this racial tension bubbles back up. Another student wanted to defend that date and time, so they allowed him to do his defense that day and time and push mine back. It ended up working for my good once again because the family is always late, and so that gave some extra buffer time to get it together. But yeah, and then also the paper getting accepted. Yeah, it got accepted maybe 2 weeks before my defense was scheduled.
So we were praying into that like crazy.
So it was a lot of moments of just like, all right, is this the real time? But I never didn't allow myself to think that it wasn't going to happen. Mm-hmm. Like I always knew it was going to happen. Yeah, it's just like, okay.
But you didn't want it to be that 9-year period. Wasn't some people just saying like 9 years?
Yeah, I didn't want it to go on because also I had to think about the fact that I do desire to have a family and make a livable wage. And the way that my career is set up, it's like you kind of have to get to a certain level professorship to get the money of someone with a doctor should be making. So I don't want to prolong, getting into that experience. So, and at that point, I had already found my next position. A year out ago. Yeah, I was trying to do and that was another thing that I wrestled with God about. Because I'm like, all right, I knew I was wilding out, and I did a lot of stuff that was not God honoring during this experience. So it's like, I know I'm a sinner, so I can't tell you what to do, because I don't know like the wages of my sin did. But I was like, okay, now I'm doing all the right things. God, kind of meet me, halfway. But sometimes it didn't feel like that was happening. But like you said, His grace was throughout the entire process, and it was like. God was developing my character to withstand being a doctor to the point where you and my best friend have to introduce me as doctor. A lot of people in my current environment, they don't even know, because it's not like, if I would have gotten my degree May 22nd, 2022, it would have been like, I'm Dr. Bess.
Oh, so that
my character was getting
up the pride. Yeah.
My character was getting formed with all the delays and the disappointment.
So God had to humble you through that delay. Yeah. So, because you started out with, man, I was prideful in the beginning of this thing. And hindsight looking, you can see that the delay and your timeline, because technically it wasn't a delay.
God knew.
Yeah, God was timely. But to you, it seemed like a delay, but it was just the process of humbling you. And
to the point where I would serve someone who I'm thinking is not serving me. Like, God can only get the glory and credit for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was like served with excellence too. It wasn't just like,
I'm gonna do this because
no, I'm the star TA.
I'm gonna give it all I got.
Driving hours
to do this in humility.
No gas money.
No gas money.
Gas is high.
Man, so this is so good. Okay, so in closing, we got your difficulties and the things that you went through. And we also see the beauty of God's grace and humbling you and developing your character. And I actually, again, got to have a front seat, I feel like, in that. And I know one of the things that I used to say is, God is building up your testimony blocks. Like, He is just building these testimony blocks, and that's exactly what He did. And you're able to now share, like, man, I was this, I used to be that, this happened to me. But in God's grace and His glory, like, man, He developed me. And what can you say to those that are struggling like you may have been, whether they are in their workplace or at school, or I know you don't technically have a family right now, or even in their family aspects or wherever they are in life? What kind of encouragement can you give them for their disappointments, or if they're feeling prideful, or just going through some of the things that you went through?
I would say get into counseling or therapy. I feel that having an outlet and a space to process the disappointment in a healthy environment, whereas I'm not putting that on, because like a lot of my close friends and family don't even know half the stuff that I was going through. And that's because I was able to process it in counseling with a licensed, therapist. So I would say get the support and the structure that you need. Now, for people, therapy can be expensive if you don't have insurance. I would say for those who can't get that type of counseling, utilize the resources that are available on YouTube and different platforms. And also, there are these therapy funds that are designed to help those who cannot financially get therapy through their insurance or their own funds. So
I know you use one.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay, so I'll shout it out. Loveland Foundation, where they give you like 10, tokens to get therapy sessions. So I would say do that, because as God is healing, you and transforming you, you do need language for some of the past stuff. As God is molding you in your current. So I would say get that therapy and that counseling and that support that you need to process the disappointments, because these are real feelings. And I think that's the beauty of the God that we serve. Like he is our holistic God who can handle our raw emotions. And even though we can't see Him, physically, He has gifted us with people and resources And so utilize everything that God has gifted you with. I know some people are against therapy.
We are
I'm not.
Jesus and therapy.
Yes.
We are both Jesus
Yes.
and therapy.
Because it's like,
we advocate for both.
Yeah, for me, that I think that is the biggest advice. And then use it as a proactive thing too. So some people feel that they only need therapy if they're like deep in something. But I use it as a maintenance.
Yeah.
So I would say get all the therapy, the resources, the books. I try to read. I could do better. But there are a lot of books and resources for you to like get that support if you can't get a physical therapist. And I would say another piece of advice or encouragement, find a scripture that can be your foundational scripture. For me, it was Colossians 3:23. For it to be my foundational scripture, I should probably have it in my heart.
That's the one. Work as unto the Lord.
Yeah, but it's basically talking about servants. Don't work as if you're working for human masters, but work as if you're working unto the Lord. And that one, it really shook me to the core, because like I said, one of the key experiences was that racial tension, and the word servant and slave, it has so many deep wound, projections of especially for me being a Black woman. But as I just kept meditating on that scripture, and also having the context, I began to approach my current situation, especially with that TAing, as like, oh, you're going to give this all you got.
Come on.
Because you are working for God, and also you don't even know why He placed you in front of these particular students at this particular time. So you got to really take this seriously and approach it with a spirit of excellence. So I would say, alongside getting that counseling and that therapy, have a foundational scripture that you can really meditate on and study, and really have it be something that you're living out. That is really going to help you get through whatever situation you're in. And in closing, just know that the God you serve has been through it all. So if you're going through a situation that you don't think nobody else in the world can relate to, because you're the only one, God can. And He has. So He's been through it, and He's going through it again with you. So just believing in a big God. Is there anything too hard for God?
Is there anything?
What we're going through is real. Our feelings are real. But the fact is, God is good. And if you're going through a situation that seems overwhelming, or invite Him into that, and know that this is not the end of your story
at all.
So keep going, keep travailing, get that community, get you an Angelica to just walk alongside that journey with you. And know that you're loved, you're well taken care of. And really invite people into it, and document it too. Document it. Journal. Do video blogs or recording. And even if this is just for your own personal view, you need to replay and go back and see how far you have come. And it's still so much more for you to go in the future too. So stay encouraged. Like, I hate when people say this is easier said than done. No, do this. Do this.
Sometimes it is easy. I can say it out of my mouth.
No, but do this.
But it's still easier for me to say.
Do it.
But it's still easier for me to say. I'm gonna do it now.
Do it though.
I'm gonna do it.
Do it.
Because like you said too, like, people are looking at us. Like, there are always people looking at
Watching,
us,
yeah.
co-workers, family members.
Mhm,
Like
mhm.
people are looking at our lives.
Yeah.
And I pray that we are modeling Jesus
Yeah.
the best of our ability.
It should be
like,
attractive. People should be
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, it's something different about how you
Right.
handling this.
Mhm.
And they should be intrigued and curious. If people are like, I don't know about that one.
I don't know about your Jesus.
I don't know about that one. Your Jesus ain't it. Then you really have to get some healing
Yeah.
and do some self-work before you present yourself to people. But it's nothing to be ashamed of or embarrassed. This is your
Yeah.
process.
Mhm.
And all parts was not pretty.
That's good, because shame can play a part in a lot of our healing and our
Yeah.
brokenness and our hurts and our habits. So yeah, shame, it ain't your portion.
It's not.
Yeah. Well, thank you again, Dr. Merci Best. I'm so excited that my friend was able to be here, and y'all gonna see her again.
Yes.
So I'm probably gonna make her film another episode.
Okay.
But thank you again so much for sharing your great story with us, and I know that you have so many more, and we will see you back on here.
Yeah.
Bye, y'all.
See y'all next week. Here, morning rays of grace. Check out some bonus behind the scene footage.
All right, come on. We did it. None of my videos
Okay, but they look so good.
look like we telling ghost stories. I don't like it.
What?
1, 2, 3.